Bibliophiles of the internet, my name is Adriana and today I'm here to bring you a spoiler-free book review for You Know Me Well by David Levithan and Nina LaCour. This is amazing own voices queer lit done by two of the best and most prominent own voices authors out there, and honestly every time I cracked open this book I just heard choirs of angels singing in my head. And what a coincidence, I'm also here to sing some praises of my own. The story is told in alternating dual perspectives. One belongs to Mark, who's gay, and the other is Kate, who is a lesbian. They know each other, they go to school together, and they sit next to one another in calculus, but they've never spoken to each other, and they're definitely not friends, but they kind of coincidentally run into one another during Pride Week at this gay bar. So once they meet up and recognize each other as queer, they fall into this very easy, natural friendship, this easy rhythm where all of their walls quickly come down and they start to share their current romantic and emotional issues with one another. Mark is completely and hopelessly in love with his best friend Ryan, who's gay but not out, and they also make out and fool around occasionally, but they're not together, so they're in this really strange limbo state, and Mark just wants Ryan to commit. Kate, on the other hand, is on the cusp of starting something new because the girl she's always been in love with is finally available and finally expressing interest in her back. But Kate is so nervous and she wants it so badly that on the first night they're supposed to meet each other, she ends up sabotaging herself and running away and standing up this amazing girl. So the more they talk about their problems, the more Mark and Kate realize that they're basically both the mayors of Disasterville, and they decide that from this night forward they're going to stick with each other, they're going to support each other, and they're going to see one another through this no matter what. Let me lay down some truth for you. One of the best things about this book is that it's entirely populated by supporting characters and main characters who are all queer. On the one hand, that seems like such a small detail, such a small and easy thing to accomplish, but on the other hand, that's a big freaking deal. That is so incredibly important, and that was a huge basis of appeal for me as a queer reader, because we don't talk about this as often as we should, but it is stupidly rare in mainstream queer YA fiction to find a book that either A, has more than two queer characters in it, or B, is a book like this that has two main queer characters who are not each other's love interest. And honestly, this book makes me hope for more narratives like this in the future that push the envelope even farther and give us an even more nuanced and complex look at queer friendships, because I feel like this one was pretty clear-cut and dichotomous because there's a gay boy and a lesbian girl, so basically anything beyond friendship between them is essentially an impossibility. But I hope for even more nuanced queer friendships in the future where maybe the character's gender identity or sexual identity is a bit closer, or they have a bit more overlap between them, because there are a lot of platonic relationships and queer friendships that are just like that too. Like, just because two people are both queer or just because they identify similarly doesn't necessarily mean they want to instigate any kind of romantic or sexual relationship with one another. And that's okay, that's fine, that's totally normal. In fact, that happens a lot, and that's why I think it deserves even more acknowledgement. So the simple fact that this story was populated by so many queer characters meant a lot to me. It made me really happy. It validated me in so many ways, and I feel like that's an accurate mirror of the world around us. Like, this is how real life is, because we as queer people tend to be drawn to one another. We see parts of ourselves in each other's stories and identities, and we want to support each other and be there for each other. We tend to move in packs, we move in herds, we flock together. So that is something that I rarely see in mainstream queer YA fiction, and I really appreciated seeing that in this story. I mean, I will say that a majority of these characters are predominantly white, and there are very few characters of different sexualities, different gender identities, very few people of color who are even mentioned or named characters in this story. But you know, systematic whitewashing is a huge problem in and of itself, and even taking that into account, this story still meant a lot. And very quickly, before I move on from this point, I just want to say that another phenomenal own voices story that does a great job of featuring multitudes of queer characters is Juliet Takes a Breath by Gabby Rivera, because pretty much everyone in that story is either a person of color or queer or both. So that was very meaningful for me and done very well. So if that's something that draws you to this book, then I very highly recommend that one as well. Another thing I really love about this book is Mark and Kate's friendship, because that just rings true to me on so many levels. I feel like what they have is so organic, natural, easy, and real. They click together so well, and I feel like they were just meant to be each other's friends because they each see the other for who they really are and not who they're supposed to be. Some people in this world are fated to meet. Some people are just meant to be each other's friends. And so this friendship really hit me on that level, and it felt so real. And it was also great to see such a healthy, open, and supportive friendship between queer characters who are so in tune with each other. Their relationship is really intuitive. They both have a great knack for sensing exactly what the other one needs and when. When is a good time to push them? When is a good time to pull back? And I feel like that really added to the strength of their dynamic as friends. It was also really interesting to read a story about two queer characters who are kind of operating on different sides of the spectrum in terms of their current romantic prospects. Mark is going through this very difficult, confusing time with his best friend, working his way through heartbreak, wondering if he can reconcile his romantic feelings with the friendship that he currently has, while Kate is so busy sabotaging herself and maybe ruining what could be the first great love of her life, but she's too scared to take the risks that she knows she needs to take. So you kind of have one character falling out of love, one character falling in love, and that makes for a really engaging and compelling read throughout. And it's also fascinating to see how these characters navigate their way through these very complicated and emotional events in their lives, both as individuals and together as friends. To me, that was one of the most emotionally rewarding and satisfying things to read about in this book. All in all, I had a really great positive experience with this book. You can really tell that the writing comes from a place of truth and understanding. It feels very genuine, real, earnest, honest. It feels like this book was written with clear purpose and intent, and that intent was to share and celebrate the multitudes of the queer community and the multitudes of queer people themselves. So it just brought me a lot of joy and validation in so many small ways, and overall I gave it 4 stars. So those are pretty much all my thoughts on You Know Me Well. If you have read this book or you would like to read it in the future, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. But that is everything I had for this video today. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope that you enjoyed it, and I will catch you on the flip side of the page. Bye.